Hello there, outliers. Niiamah Shang here, and thank you so much for letting me be a part of your journey. I say me, but I do mean us because today I have an amazing outlier by the name of Kate Crawshaw. Kate, it is absolutely amazing that we get to spend time together. I've been getting to know you, and I'm so excited to give outliers a chance to see the game that you're playing.
Thank you, Niiamah. And I always knew that I was an outlier, and it's really good to be in with the Outliers podcast and a group of them. So I'm very excited to be here.
Well, excited to have you. I like to start off each conversation with just like a real reflection of like who you've been to me. Are you open to that right now?
Sure. No, not sure. Absolutely.
You know it,
Absolutely.
so yeah, you see, outliers, how it is. That was a yes, sure right there. Thank you so much, Kate. So here goes like who you've been to me here. Whenever I see you, I get legitimately excited. I think that you play in a field that is just both fascinating and I think like incredibly transformative in such an open way about it. I feel like that's how I experience you. Like each time we talk, there's something new that I discover about you, and it has an impact that comes in like that impacts me and shifts something about me, while at the same time just being like fun and simple to be with. The way I look at it here is like you remind me of what it's like to be with my peers, and I'm really grateful for that because I see you continuing to climb new heights, and I get the challenge that you take on and the challenges that you bring to your clients to help them get on to new heights, and I'm just like deeply grateful to know you and to share this conversation with the other outliers out there. Thanks for being you.
Thank you. I feel the same. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Kay, I like to share a bit about who you've been to me to start us off, but I do want to make sure that outliers get a sense of the external context about you too, right? The way I look at it is like we're all out here playing a game. We're choosing to do something epic with our lives, and it's happened to be in a way that most other people aren't doing it. Would you mind taking some time to just like help us see the epic game that you're playing? What's the game that you're playing nowadays?
Wow. Well, the epic game that I'm playing at the moment is predominantly through my business Serious Woo, which has been running for about 7 years. It's an experiential learning organization, and we're really here to bridge theory and practice. So one of the things with learning, we're confronted with so much information, so many theories, so many ideas these days, and often we internalize them, but there's a gap between having that confidence and really being able to connect with things authentically. So I work mainly in the space around interpersonal relationships. So whether it's around difficult conversations, around how to manage the tension between creative ideas and being able to bring them forward as a team, challenging discussions around diversity and inclusion and equity, gendered violence, lots of different really complex and tricky conversations, and also getting people to build their self-awareness. So often we think these conversations are about how do I manage the other person, but I find some of the most effective breakthroughs are when people actually build that self-awareness, understand their own responses to situations, that actually create the most breakthrough.
This is fantastic here. I'm hearing this. I have a background in learning development. So when like my first business was actually called like Pro Social Learning because it was all about like or like the way like that's the LLC that I've gone by because it's like, oh, and how do I like do help professionals learn in a social context, I think it's what I think it's really awesome is that you've taken things to the heart of the interpersonal relationships. And I think that's one of the hardest things. They often say like there's hard skills and soft skills. And I'm like, no, I think there's hard skills and harder skills. Math is easy. There's one right answer. You might get to it a couple of different ways, but there's one right answer. Like, what's the right way to like handle an employee or a manager where things are just like you're not seeing eye to eye and so forth? Not anywhere near as clear. So, uh,
Mm.
I get curious here. You've been doing it for 7 years here. What made you say like out of all the modalities to work with people, like I'm gonna choose like this experiential learning component of it. I'm really curious about that.
Well, it was interesting because I was definitely at an impasse in my life. I'd worked a lot in innovation and communication strategy for a number of years, whether it being client side or in an agency environment. And I started getting frustrated around strategy.
Mm.
I likened it to Raiders of the Lost Ark and the Ark of the Covenant, where everyone was kind of desperate to get the strategy. Many people died building the strategy, but then it ended up in an archive box, never to be touched again. But I knew that I really loved the research information gathering part of strategy around running workshops and getting people's ideas and input and that kind of thing. So there was that seed in my mind. And then I met my former business partner, who was a professional actor, did a lot of corporate role play, and was talking about wanting to set up a corporate role play business. And we didn't know each other that well at that time, but something just came out of me and I said, I'll do it with you. And that's really how it started. Experiential learning is all about learning by doing, and this business has evolved through learning by doing, really. So we started off really supplying corporate role play actors. So where other facilitators or other organizations wanted to use actors to practice, do the dreaded role play that everyone's very scared about. But that's generally because they're asked to do it with their work colleague and they have to pretend. Whereas we're able to provide clients a very realistic environment in a safe and playful way. So, yesterday I was working with some very, very delicate topic. And, this is a space where people, I said to the participants, it's not about perfection. This is not about me evaluating you. This is a sandpit. This is where you get to go, oh, so I was told this and that, and maybe I'll see how I respond, or what does it feel like to try on talking in this way, or I know that I cut people off, so I'm going to be really aware of letting people finish, but obviously doing this in a impact-free zone because it's pretend.
Mm.
So we started off just with the providing corporate actors, and then we were asked to provide broader services, so designing workshops, designing leadership programs and that kind of thing. And a few years ago, my business partner left to pursue other more of the purely play-based topics, and I've pursued Serious Woo from there. So that's been the journey.
That's really interesting. So, as you're talking, what was going through my mind was just like thinking about the number of people who are working in organizations. They may be putting together some kind of their own programs, but then like that problem of you're getting someone who has a very specific role, asking them to put on a completely different hat for a bit of time, and like being able to play in that role play is not like as strong as just being able to bring in people who are like we're seasoned in this. We can create an environment where we can make it easy for you, and not what's going on in my mind is that I can think about this, like the different partners and partnerships that can come out of this thing here, where it's like, hey, outliers, we're out there, and we'll share your contact info here later on here, Kate. But like, if you're are you still doing like the acting part of the role play as well?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we have I've got a large cohort of actors that I've worked with for many years. Just because you're a good actor doesn't mean you're a good corporate actor, because
Yeah.
when you're on stage and as an actor, your primary motivation is to be truthful as the actor, as your character. Whereas when you work in a role play setting, it's about Niiamah's learning outcomes. And so if you come and you appear very expert in whatever we're learning or trying out, the actor might make it harder for you. If you're more junior and more unsure, we're going to drop down that level of difficulty. So you're still learning, you're still stretching, but there's no shame, there's no feeling of failure. And that's that sticky spot that you want, where people are stretched accordingly, but they also, they feel empowered, they feel more confident rather than less confident once they leave.
Yeah, I'm just like, as you're talking, like my mind is just like expanding to like, how do we actually create information interventions, transformations that like actually give people the end result. It's taking me back to like my first ever week of working. I have never forgot it. I worked at one of the big four consulting companies. They took us out to a university, like they flew us out there, and then they had a session where we got to role play interviews, and it's like we had learned different things during the day, and then we came and we got a chance to role play. And I don't remember most of that week, but that like to this day, I still think about the impact of that. I still think about how I might have addressed it differently and such. So when you talk about bringing in even just that one factor of role play, in addition to all the different areas there, that was in a very like the conversation topic was not that dangerous. Or not, I don't like to use the word dangerous. It wasn't that meaningful. It wasn't that important, right? It was business related, but it wasn't like some of the topics that you were bringing in here, where it's like they can be really tricky. And I think that people genuinely want to do good, but it's also like I feel like there's a lot of, it almost feels like that you're stepping in like a landmine field, but you don't know where the landmines are. And like being able to navigate that, this feels really, really tricky. So we're gonna get to you in just a bit. Like we're gonna leave the work in just a bit, but it is still fascinating to me. Do you mind if we stay on the work for just a little longer?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I am very passionate about this work. I
Yeah.
feel like, as you would know, there's been a massive commoditization of learning over the last 20 years with online learning, thinking people are going to learn and retain information by, clicking, check boxes on a screen. And there are a lot of, if we look at experiential learning and the experiential learning cycle, we need to have that interaction. We need to build the confidence, be able to conceptualize what's happening and reflect. And these kind of experiences connect us emotionally to the topic and actually build that confidence, the retention. It's really important, and we are losing the opportunity to do this in organisations more and more each day, when people look for the cheapest way of saying that they've done training.
It's super interesting because like as you're saying, I'm like, well, all of like organizations, all of like real making something happen is just experience, right? It's like if you're not, it's I think about this year and I'm like, how how costly is it to an organization to have to find out in the middle of a real like environment with a client or with another employee where like they didn't, like the people didn't have the skills to navigate that conversation properly, you know even if everyone stays there, just like the cost in the relationship, the friction of what takes place there, I'm imagining some of the things that happen, just it when you have to experience it in real time for the first time, like you know what I'm saying, like in real life for the first time here. So do you have any thoughts on that here? I'm like, I could just see, I don't know, I'm listening to this, I'm like, oh, this just makes sense to get some of this stuff done properly,
Well, I
where it's like
think,
in your bones.
I mean, you mentioned before that you'd had that experience of assessment centers, and that's often where people have had an experience of a simulation kind of experience
Mhm.
in a lot of organizations. And I think that happens because graduates don't have they don't have the resume that lists all their achievements.
Oh.
However, we know that resumes and the reality that there can be massive gaping holes in what someone looks like on paper and the reality. So when we think about how expensive the recruitment process is, and also the financial impact on someone who does not have those strong interpersonal skills, to me it's an obvious it's an obvious thing to include things there, and also to have these kind of conversation practices throughout the year. Like, it's a muscle. So, you know, often people avoid having tricky conversations because they feel uncomfortable. They don't like doing it. They don't like having to say something to people that, you know, could impact their relationship. And they'll wait until, you know, the annual performance review or things like that. And they lose the muscle, they lose the skills. And it's, you know, there's so many places to have, to weave these into the year, and just to build that culture of, this is, you know, this is how we do things. This is the expectation, that we, you know, are able to sit in this discomfort because this is kind. This is how we want to operate as a culture. And it's also makes economic sense, because it costs a lot to lose people, and it costs a lot for people to miscommunicate on a project, to get angry in a project, and therefore, you know, little microaggressions start building up. So there's lots, there's so many infinite possibilities for this kind of work.
Yeah, you know, as you're talking now I'm curious about like what's like the hardest part of this here. Like, I think there's probably twofold. We'll go with what's the hardest part for like the clients or the people who are in the workshops with you as they go through it, and then what's the hardest part for you? You've done this now for 7 years and such. I'm like I'm a believer in this. I'm really curious about like that sticky point.
So I think one of the hardest things for participants, I think, is if it's not a psychologically safe space when they're going in. So, you know, this work is vulnerable. You know, because we don't do it in isolation, because the benefits of actually observing people, being able to interact and thinking, oh, you know, I loved what Kate just said to Niiamah, then I might use that in one of my, you know, my conversations. Or, oh, I can see that she's really speeding up, or she just cut him off, or whatever those little nuances are. Or it might be getting into nonverbal communication. So, you know, we're often not we're in that environment where our peers see us interacting in these ways. So it can be very confronting if there is a team that where the psychological safety is lacking. And often the higher you get up in an organization, the less real these conversations are. So I think
Interesting.
that can be confronting for leaders also, you know, to be demonstrating, you know, to be working in front of their team potentially. I mean, sometimes I'll work in organizations where it's more of just an ongoing program, so they self-select, and they might get a whole group of people they don't know as well. So there's a lot of work from that side of doing as much as I can to introduce myself before a program. So they'll see me on a video, they'll see I'm a bit of a weirdo, you know, not perfect, and try and create that ease. And it's also around the setup of the program. So, and, you know, that's something I've got my eye on all the time. What can be hard for me, there's a couple of things. One is, well, actually, it all leads to probably the issue that organizations want to fix everything in one workshop. So it's a bit like going to a PT, and, you know, I'll go in and they'll be like, so, you know, Kate, your core's good, but your quads are terrible, and you need to build your, you know, you can only do a 15-minute run, and you're wanting to do a marathon. So that's great. I've kind of started on the journey, built a little bit of awareness, but I need a bit more support ongoing. So
Yeah.
it's great when I do have organizations that understand that, having a couple of goes at these clinics are really beneficial, because we don't just start building awareness around our deficits, but we start actually being able to put new strategies into play as well.
Yeah. When you say that, it took me back to my days in tech, and we had right when I was leaving, they were implementing this thing called like a culture of feedback. And it was just like this idea of like in that organization, they wanted it to increase the feedback that was taking place, but the component of a culture of it was really important, because it's like you can't just have a feedback training and expect everyone to give feedback like, hey, we've done it and now we're there. It's like it's all the messages all the time, and how many different ways can they be incorporated so that it's actually a part of the ethos. It's actually a part of like what I'm hearing here is that it's uh, I'm a culture guy, so I tend to think about things about like, all right, how do we get things to be like to stay, to be able to continue to get that ongoing impact. And I'm hearing like, okay, yeah, like this is one of those things where it consistently benefits from presence, from attentiveness in the conversation, so that people just stay on their game. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's I don't know, I'm getting older. I keep using garden analogies as well. And it's
Okay.
like soil. Like if you want to keep producing, if you want to have a vegetable garden and keep producing good vegetables, you can't just take from the soil. You got to put back in. You've got to allow people to, have that time to practice and to learn and build the confidence as well. And I think one of the other issues is that I get a lot of the pushback I get in my workshops occasionally is, why do I have to be the responsible adult?
Ooh,
So,
like this.
you know, well, my boss is crap, or all this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think what I love about the work that I do, it's interpersonal skills. It doesn't stop in the confines of your organization.
Yep.
This is, if you leave wherever you're working tomorrow, it doesn't matter. These skills will change your life. And being a responsible adult isn't actually a sacrifice. It's actually better for your mental health. It's better for your physical health. And it's better for the planet, really. I know that sounds a little bit cliche, but if we all start going into conversations with more curiosity and less judgment, even when we are polarized in conversations, we are going to create more receptivity to our own ideas, and also potentially develop a little humility to be open to other people's ideas more as well.
Yeah, I'm thinking about this right now through the context of the outliers here, and so some of them are leading organizations, and they get it. Some of them have been in that position. It's like, well, why do I have to be the one that's responsible for this? And I also think about it from like the context of like being a visionary leader, and being able to like navigate the space of people like either understanding or not understanding, and how you able to stay there. I'm not. I don't know. I'm not proud. I'm not like disappointed either, but like, 'cause I think life experience comes in. But I know that there are times where like my nervous system has gotten hijacked in a conversation, and it's just like, how do I bring like, especially when I'm talking about something that's either most people haven't done before, like they're having a harder time catching the vision. They're asking questions in a way that is just like that feels dismissive, and I'm like I just want to be open in all this space here, and I'm thinking to like what you're saying, and think about like the benefits of being able to be basically to be able to stay open and stay open, stay human, and stay an adult in the
Yeah.
conversation where like it's like we all kind of want the same things, like at this time here, so that's playing out for me right now as you're talking.
Oh, totally. And, you know, it's interesting because I feel like Serious Woo was my own, that old, you're probably too young, there was that Ronson, was it Ronson? Filler Shave? I can't remember, one of those razor businesses where the man was like, I love the razor so much, I bought the company. And I feel in a way that, for me, Serious Woo has been a journey in self-development as well, in, really challenging myself and giving my own self-reflection on my own interpersonal relationships, whether at work or outside of the office as well. So
let's make that real. Like if you had to share one or two things that you feel like you like gained or learned as a result of the work that you do, like on your own like personal development journey, because a lot of us here, we're here for that. We're like, how do we keep growing as it goes along?
I think, we've all got different styles. I definitely, ideas come very easily to me, and just holding back, allowing other people the floor is, has been a big learning for me. Yeah. Clarifying, being open. I'm quite a sensitive person. So I can go into a room, I feel the vibe of a room very quickly. And sometimes I will, I won't ask questions enough to clarify my feelings or thoughts or judgments, let's say. And and so I'm really, I'm challenging myself to do that. It's actually about being slower. I used to, if I'd already decided on what was the most appropriate way to move forward in a project meeting when I was younger, it was almost like my brain would explode. Hurry up, people. Yeah. And it's not helpful. It's not helpful. It's not helpful for me. It wasn't helpful for me, and it's not helpful for the rest of the team. So it is about slowing down, just being, being interested in understanding people's perspectives. Yeah. And, we have mirror neurons. We reciprocate. We are built for reciprocity. So if you and I were clashing on an opinion about something, and I let you talk, and then I share about, oh, well, these are the things we have in common on this topic. This is where I feel a little bit differently. You'll be way more open to exploring my ideas as well, because I've granted you the courtesy of listening to you and reflecting back that I was listening.
And there's a little bit of a nuance there, right? Because I'm thinking about like the reflecting back that I was listening, and I've been in conversations where someone's like, I'm reflecting back. They're like, okay, I hear you, and they're saying all the words, but you don't feel heard, So can I ask here, like when you say reflecting back, what does that look like in a nuanced fashion for you?
It's it's interesting because people have a real very big difference in opinion in reflecting back, or if I want to use the other terminology of paraphrasing and things like that in a conversation, people can have a real visceral response. Well, my manager did that to me, and I think I felt really patronized, or they were really condescending or whatever. And absolutely, like, just because something's a pencil, if they're not using the object properly, it can be a weapon. So, and what I mean by that is, there's different tactics that you can use that will less likely elicit a stress response from someone when you're in a challenging conversation. So, for example, there's a lot of talk around I statements. So if I start something like, Niiamah, I noticed that you were a little upset in that meeting. You didn't seem to be usual self. That is less likely to get you into a stress response than saying, gee, you were upset in that meeting, because it looks like I'm pointing the finger in the second example. Now, so people will say, oh, well, my boss used an I statement on me and it was really patronizing. And yes, if I'm not doing it, if I'm not talking with authenticity and interest, it doesn't matter what tactics I use, they are still going to come across as inauthentic. So if I am reflecting back or paraphrasing with the absolute intent to do that because I'm actually interested in making sure that I've understood you, you're going to feel, you are going to feel that. You know, I mean, there's so many different statistics that I don't like saying statistics around nonverbal communication, but you know, let's just be very modest here and say at least 50% of our communication is nonverbal. So if there is some kind of cognitive dissonance around what I'm saying and how my body looks, my tone of voice, my speed, where my eyes are, all those kind of things, you know, obviously using the I statement is not going to mean anything.
Yeah, I love this stuff here because like over the time, Kate, I've given myself permission to go like more tactical on things, right? So I used to be very much around like, let's focus on your being, right? So well, like I went from math, which is like all the way to this, right? So when it came to transformations, it really was like, let's focus on your being. How are you like what's your mindset? How are you going about doing things? Then I realized like there's still it's not an either or, right? There's that element of like how you do things make a difference too, right? So like from what I'm hearing here, it's like you can have if you have that tactical component to you, it's like if you're missing where like why this is effective, then you're not going to be able to be effective. And I think, and I,
Yeah.
you know, at the same time, you know, as I think about like that element of the almost like the victim mentality versus like the like I could see a victim, a hero, and just like and someone who's just like genuinely interested in just doing right by people. You know, the victim being like, why does it have to be me? You know, the hero being like, of course it's going to be me. Like, like everyone else doesn't really get it. You know, like I'm the hero of this year. Um, and it's just as then like you know the genuine thing because you know what it is. You know what it is, Kate. I think it's because I I like I talk a lot, but I like listening and I listen. I feel like I listen on multiple dimensions. There's like so much of me that's like, how does this actually work? How does it work to like not be like to not give out these cues and so on and so forth? I realize like I'm trying to like deeply empathize with it and like put myself in that shoes. And I'm like, huh, that is actually more foreign to me than like that I think I'm like that I'm emitting right now, you know?
Yeah, I do. I think there's this idea of appreciating individual difference. Like I remember when I worked for a corporate law firm for a few years early on in my late 20s. I was, for those of you who worked in professional services, I was a fee burner and not a fee earner. So I wasn't a lawyer, worked in the innovation team, and we ran a workshop appreciating individual differences, external facilitator, and we did Myers-Briggs, and it was the first time that I'd done any kind of psychometric testing like that, and I'd like ate it up, and the facilitator drew like a matrix of the different styles on the ground and got us to stand in our quadrant. And I think I was the only one of my type, ENFP, but one of the leaders um, in the other team was also alone in one quadrant, and which is the kind of thing you actually want. You want diversity of opinion and all this kind of thing, but she took it very personally and thought that this whole workshop was a setup to get her out of the business. And you know, it's interesting with different these kind of different testing models, because I think if if they're not facilitated by someone that is in the know, and it was at this stage, but I've been in other situations where, you know, I've had a team leader who rolled their eyes at me when they found out that I was an ENFP because that wasn't the right type that she was looking for. And we have to remember, like, you know, different communication styles, different ways of operating in the world is actually what we want, what we need. You know, that was what the study of gorillas where, and, you know, I'm terrible at citations. So there was
Yeah,
a
no,
study somewhere. I'm not going to be
yeah.
able to quote where it was from, but I remember reading about it and saying, and anyway, some researchers were studying this tribe. What's the collective pronoun for gorillas? Of gorillas, and they identified that there always seemed to be a group of gorillas that had higher anxiety, that had a higher startle reflex, and just seemed, you know, a bit more anxious than the rest of the gorillas. Anyway, they did an experiment and they took them out of the group. And within a year, the rest of the gorillas were dead.
Interesting.
And, you know, whereas they'd be like, might have been like, you know, if that was me as one of the gorillas, the rest of them might have been like, oh gosh, Kate, she's so painful. Like, you know, she's so like risk adverse and like jumps at everything and all this kind of thing. But you need that balance in a team. Like you need those people in your life as well. Those people that are like, oh, well, are you sure it's okay to go there? Oh, actually, I didn't think about that bit. Maybe I shouldn't jump in the river when there's crocodiles or whatever the gorillas are saying to each other.
I like
So,
this year. This is like I think about this year, and not lies. I'm gonna pull you in on this in this part of the conversation. Um, I like for you to think about like what group would you be pulled out in? You know, the overly like what this is making me think of, and I hope he doesn't mind, but it makes me think of my brother here. And for years, I was like, oh man, he's like pretty pessimistic. Because I was like the visionary. I would get super excited about things. I'm an ENTP, but I have like a T and F kind of border there. So I was like, oh, I see you. The But I would come to him with all these ideas, and it would just, and he would always find out, like, he would always be like, well, this isn't going to work because of XYZ. I'm like, you've shattered my dream, like all that there. And then I started my own business, and it actually like really helped our relationship because I realized that I'm like, now I'm doing everything. And I don't just get to like dream of the idea and then like it just goes off or whatever it is. Like I'm actually doing it. And there's things that I am finding are falling through the cracks. So I would go and ask him about things or ask him for support. And he would just have like, he would actually give the most critical feedback. And I found myself being like, at that stage, like just really like happy, you know, because I'm like, all right, finally, someone is actually looking at this here. And I realized I'm like, oh, you don't go to him to ideate. You go to him for quality assurance. Like he's QA. Like what he does at in his job now, like he gets paid to like make sure that when people change things, it doesn't break. You know, and like that's his skill. It was just I was coming to him in a completely wrong capacity for him.
yeah.
He's an expert at what he does. He gets paid to do it. He's my brother, so I ask him for it, you know. But like people pay him to bring quality to what he does, and I'm asking him to bring like energy and enthusiasm to an unqualified idea, like literally something I just thought of. So when I hear this year, it takes me to a thought like that. And so I want to get your thoughts on this in just a bit, Kate. But I'm gonna put it to outliers here. Like, hey, like, what's your thing? What's the thing that people like that like in the wrong context, people might not necessarily get how they can harness or that it comes off in a different way. Secondly, have you put yourself in the right context? Are you creating the environment such that like when like you can enter into it? There's a reason why I do podcasts, y'all. If I was trying to write a blog, like y'all would not be feeling me like the way that I feel. You know, but like I do this for a reason because I keep putting myself in the context that actually support it. And then the last thing I would say is like for you or for a person that, let's say, think about any interpersonal relationship you're having right now. for me, I would call like, what's the gift of that person? Kate, you might frame it in a different way. How would you like kind of like how would you frame this part here where like the anxious group here, like what was the benefit of them? What was the way you were looking at it?
I think we can almost look at it like, it is really around, is your team an echo chamber? The people that you surround, like, so if you're, an entrepreneur, it's harder because often, like in an organization, you are thrown into a mix of people that you don't know, and you've got to, you do have to navigate those differences. But you also see, like, when marketing meets procurement, the clash of civilizations, because the different functions can attract different skills and different people.
Mm-hmm.
And it is being open to well, how receptive am I to different information? Is it just that, Niiamah and I can talk for hours because we've got very similar types, and we love ideas, and we just get all so excited and bigger. But, and we might see, like, oh, your brother's come and he's real downer because
Yeah.
he's just said this. But, we really have to build an appreciation of those challenges, because we need all those people around us to be effective, in
Okay.
whatever we're choosing to do.
This is awesome. I'm enjoying this here. I want to make sure that we give some space and time for us to like wrap up with a little bit of grace and ease. So I like to and I like to give us here. I have about 4 questions for you, Kate, as we end up here. The first one here is what I call an outsight. So an outsight is something that you would want to take, that you have within you, that you want to share with others. So what's a takeaway or like some kind of um, uh, advice that you want to like to pass on to outliers who are listening today?
Wow, that's a lot of pressure. I think, you know, owning your feelings and thinking, when you are working with someone and you're annoyed, rather than thinking about them, think about yourself. Well, why? Why did I find that so challenging? And unpacking it.
I love that. I think that like it's a really actually like it's a pretty like Jedi move right there, where it's just like it's simple in there because it's like the one constant you have is yourself. I mean, and we're always changing too, but like that, I feel like that's something you can really pull out there and use. So I appreciate that. Um, Second question for you, like for anyone that is interested in going down the journey, that wants to like continue down the journey with you, Kate, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn, Kate Crawshaw, Crawshaw, or through my organization, Serious Woo, which is also on LinkedIn. And it's also on, go to the website. Now, it does have an AU at the end, I feel, because I, obviously had some self-limiting belief that I would only be in Australia. But
Mhm.
it's Serious Woo, so serious.com.au.
Love it.
Hopefully
Love it.
everyone's followed the accent.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Thank you, Kate. Yeah, and I love this too because it's like these are just global issues. Like it's just like this is just we're just people. We're just people trying to navigate these things over and over and over again. And it's like you bring people together, like this is what now we must contend with. And then what I love is that like you're like let us be let us be ahead so that while other organizations, while other teams, while other like groups are like having to deal with and come from behind on this year, we've never lost a step. And actually we get a chance. Like I think I have a secret thing that not secret, but like I joke with some of my friends. I'm like, oh crap, we just had an argument. You're about to become my best friend. Cause like I like it like if I can actually get real with someone and we get to a place where we're in a contentious, like more conflicting conversation and we choose to navigate it with grace or with with love or with just empathy or whatever it is that comes along the way, those are typically the ones where you're like, this is a relationship that I'm gonna keep fighting for. This is the one that like we can go anywhere together.
It's so it's really profound. And I guess my build on that also would be, think about how you do that with people that you don't even want to be your best friend. So if you have a disagreement, how can you reconnect? So it's around, disagreements are good. We need them. We actually need them for creativity and innovation. But how do we disagree and not disconnect?
Good. That's good. Oh, I have two last questions for you. Both of them are for you right here, Kate. The first one is like, what's an insight that you got? What's something that you learned about yourself, that you remembered about yourself, typically the way things go? And the answer could be nothing. I'm always good with that too, but I want to just give space. What's an insight that you got as from any part of this experience here today?
That play is fun. So not coming into a podcast prepared, wanting with an agenda, wanting to say things, just going with the flow is really the best way to be.
I'm enjoying it. I'm glad we got a chance to play that way. Last one here, Kate, is what I call the time capsule question, right? And so this is here. You're going to leave a message for yourself and almost leave it in a time capsule, so that you don't come across it for another 10 years, right? So in that time, you'll be 10 years older. You'll have 10 years more experience. Like your family will all be 10 years, like grown, like so on and so forth. And you'll coming from that level of success where you see yourself there, you want to be reminded of something that you know to be true right now with the wisdom that you have in this current moment. What's the message that you would leave for your future self?
Look how much more enjoyment you had, and the amount you did by going slow.
And with that, Jenny, I think we're there, outliers. We're here. We're here. Kate, thank you so much for bringing your experience. Thank you for building your experience. Thank you for putting yourself in a position where you do the things that you love, and you step into the unconventional and to bring what people really need, like the actual experience of doing it rather than just checking the box, and think like I see you in the trenches with that, and I appreciate what you bring to the table here. Thank you once again, and I wish you all the best. Be well.
Thank you so much, Niiamah. It's been an absolute pleasure.